Doing the rule of 3 is one of the hardest things to do and to want to do. Once you get your practice at it, then it's not that bad. But the rule of 3 is what I do, what I teach, and what I do in my home when somebody is what we call out of instructional control. And that means they're not willing to follow any instructions from parents. Well, a lot of times people that are just teaching their children how to do self-government, how to learn the 4 basic skills, which is to follow instructions and these things, they often have a hard time knowing what to do after they've done the rule of 3 and their child has still chosen to stay out of instructional control. So they often will email me and say, what if my child chooses to just stay out of instructional control? Like, what if they're that way forever? Well, the good news is they won't be that way forever. It may kind of seem like they're that way for a while, and they might just be reserving it for you, which tells you a lot about your relationship, actually. If your child is good and kind to everyone else, but stays out of instructional control or attitudey or moody with you, then you know that your relationship actually needs a lot of help. So if they're just reserving their power struggles and out of control behaviors for you, then you know that you're probably not being consistent enough with them, and teachers at school are, and that they know where they stand with them better than with you. So let's talk about what if they're out of instructional control. You've been through the whole rule of 3. They've chosen to lose their privileges for 24 hours. Okay, but they're still out of instructional control. What do? Well, their negative consequence does not begin until they are able to accept it, which means they have to accept losing their privileges for 24 hours if that's what you use as part of your rule of 3. That's what we do. That's like the biggest thing that they can lose in our home is the 24 hours with no privileges. So that means that I'm going to come to them every maybe 20 minutes and I'm just going to say, hey, you look like you're being pretty calm, and so it seems like you're probably ready to follow instructions. Are you ready to follow instructions? And if they go, you wish, or, whatever they do, they roll their eyes, or they don't look at you, or they won't talk to you, or whatever they do when they're upset, then you can go, okay, well, I was just checking. The sooner that you choose to accept your consequence and follow through with it, the sooner you can have all of your privileges back again. But as it is right now, you're just kind of punishing yourself until that time. And they don't realize that's what they're doing. So sometimes I will point that out to them in just a real gentle tone. Not something that I want to make fun of them about or anything like that, because it's not the time, and it certainly doesn't work. Sometimes they might choose to stay out of instructional control for a while. Thing is that it is draining to be angry. It actually takes energy from your body. And you've seen when little children, they kick and they scream and they whine, and then what do? They fall asleep. Well, it's because it's so tiring to be that way. Well, same with adults or teens or other children. If they're frustrated inside and they're just stewing and having a hard time about things, it's going to wear them out. And soon they'll just decide, I can't do this forever. And they will soon come around. It could actually take a few days. I've had foster children that have lived with me that have gone out of instructional control for a couple of days. And those children finally came around, though. So they started going out of instructional control and staying out of it for a couple of days, and then accepting their consequence and following through with it. And then all of a sudden it was one day. And then they'd accept their consequence and follow through with it. And then it was 6 hours. And then they'd accept their consequence and follow through. And then 4, and then 3, and then 2. And then they got to a point where I could say, it seems to me like you might be out of instructional control. And all of a sudden they go, you know what, just 1 minute, I'm going to take a breath, and I want to talk calmly with you about this. And they could get themselves in control enough in just a few breaths to be able to talk about it. Because they decided, why would they do that to themselves? It doesn't do any good. Another thing is that don't be so heavy and dramatic about things when they're out of instructional control. That's just how they are. It doesn't affect you. You go along with the other children. The children that are being good should get the majority of your time. Spend your time with them. Just be your regular self. And that even means that, you know what? If something happens that's funny, laugh. Humor can do amazing things. When somebody is out of instructional control, you can have a situation where sometimes maybe you're trying to say a word, which happens to me all the time, and it comes out wrong. And you just start laughing at yourself. And then they may laugh at you too. Don't try to make jokes, but be open to the idea that a good laugh could change all the mood. And make sure that you allow them to get in on a laughy situation sometimes, even though they're being out of instructional control. The biggest thing that I can tell you about this is be consistent. A child or a teen will learn that being out of instructional control does no good. None whatsoever. When the 2 British teens came to my home, they were out of instructional control for 2 days straight. And after 2 days of out of instructional control, they just stopped. And one day I asked Hannah, well, Hannah, how come all of a sudden for 2 days you guys were running away and yelling and swearing at me and trying to say everything you could to make me upset? And then after those 2 days, you're just completely calm. And you're so kind and good, and you can accept no answers and follow instructions. It's like night and day. And she said, well, at my house, if I yell, I get my way. Or at least somebody yells back. But here, you guys are just so calm. So I just figured I might as well be calm too. And it worked for her. And she saw that. And I know that James and Hannah, when they went home, were a lot more calm, communicated better with their parents too, because they learned a new way, and that they can control themselves, and that with self-control, self-government, that's where the real power lies.